Hello everyone, welcome to my video series on Sonic Pi. My name is Chad. I'm a music teacher, bassist, composer, and songwriter based here in Hexham, just west of Newcastle upon Tyne in northeast England. I'm going to be taking 4 or 5 videos here. Not quite sure. We'll see how it shapes up as we go. But this is meant to just give you a basic introduction to making music with Sonic Pi. I know some of you will be familiar with programs like GarageBand, where you're taking some loops and different beats and dragging them into Windows and organizing sounds and making songs that way. Sonic Pi really is exactly the same, except instead of doing that in a visual way, we tell the computer what to do using code. So it's a little bit different way of thinking about making music, but it's really fun and it lets you do a lot of different kinds of things that you can't really do as much in programs like GarageBand. So I want to take this first short introductory video and just kind of show you what Sonic Pi looks like and a couple of things that you can do, just really basic stuff. So don't worry if you don't understand exactly what you're seeing on the screen right away. We're going to go step by step and get into it. So I'm looking here on the Sonic Pi window that you see on the left side of your screen. And we've got a short little bit of code here. It says live_loop, kick it, do, and then I'm playing a little sample. This is a bass drum. And then I'm using this little command here, sleep, which is telling the computer to wait for half a second. And then I'm ending that loop. Now, anytime I type code into this window here, I can run the code and then Sonic Pi will make sound. And I'm going to do that just by hitting the run button here in the upper left of my screen. So I'm going to click that now and we'll see what it sounds like. So you can see we've just got a nice beat. I can stop Sonic Pi by just hitting the stop button, which is just to the right of the run button. So I can stop it just like that. Now, the concept of live coding really does what it says on the tin. You write some code, you run it, and then while it's running, you can actually make changes to the code without stopping it. Run it again, and Sonic Pi will take into account the changes and keep the music going. So I'm going to run this again. And I'm just going to change my sleep time. So instead of 0.5 seconds or half a second, I'm going to have it sleep for 1 second. And now when I click run again, you can see it's slowed that kick drum down. And so it's just beating once per second. I didn't have to stop the code. I just changed the number and hit run again. And Sonic Pi does it automatically. So I'm going to change this back now to 0.5, hit run, and I've got my quicker kick drum now. And now one more thing I'll show you before we go on. So I'm just going to make another live loop. This time I'm going to call this one snare hit. We're going to have a different sample this time. Let's just choose this one. And I'm going to have it sleep for half a second again, but this time I'm going to stick in another sleep just before the sample, and then I'll end my loop. Now, we're live coding here, so I don't have to stop the code that I'm running with the kick drum. I can just hit run again, and it's going to add this new musical element, which is the snare drum that I've just typed in. So now we've got a snare drum. It's a little bit out of sync with our kick drum. So I'm just going to type in sync, and I'm going to sync it to the kick drum that I added up on top. Hit run again, and now it's synced together. And I'm going to do a little trickery here just so it goes properly with the beat. There we go. And now we've got a nice beat with just a few lines of code. What do I have here? 13 lines. We've got a nice kick snare, basic rock pattern. Okay, so I'll hit stop now and stop my code. So by layering different live loops, you can create really detailed rhythms and melodies and really anything that you can imagine. just using a few lines of code. So again, don't worry if you don't understand everything that you've just seen. We're going to get through everything step by step. I just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the things you can do. So I'm just going to get rid of this second loop for now and go back to just this first kick drum loop. And what I'd like you to do for the next 5-10 minutes is pause the video and then play around with a couple of things here. So we can change the sleep time. Again, the sleep time is how long the computer waits before going through the loop again. All it's doing is it's playing this sample over and over again in a loop after waiting or sleeping for a certain amount of time. In this case, it's half a second. So again, that sounds like this. So every half second, it's looping around. I can make this number whatever I want. I can make it a 2 if I like. So that's quite slow. Every 2 seconds, the loop comes around. I can even make it really fast. So 0.1 or a tenth of a second. Which is pretty hardcore. Okay, so I'll change this back to 0.5 for now. So play around with some different sleep times, see how fast and how slow you can make it. Another thing you can change is you can change which sample you're using. So I chose this bass drum house here because I quite like that one. I can make this whatever I want, actually. So if I delete this sample and I move my cursor back so it's right next to the E in the last letter of sample, and I hit the space bar, I get a drop-down menu. Now, I've just noticed that on my recording software here, you don't see the drop-down menu in this video, but when you do it on your machine, you'll see it. So on my screen, I can see all of the different samples now in a drop-down menu. So I'm going to choose another one here, just at random. I'm going to try this glitch percussion, and let's see what this sounds like. Quite cool. Okay, I like that one. So again, to change the sample, you just delete the one that's there, back your cursor up so it's next to the E in sample, and when you hit the space bar, you'll see a drop-down menu. You don't see it on the video here because my software is not capturing it, but it's there. And then you can choose any one of the samples that you see there. There are dozens and dozens of things to choose from. Just this one at random, electric, low snare. Okay, and you can run your code again by hitting that run button in the upper left. Stop button next to it just stops the code. So take 5 or 10 minutes, pause the video, and have a play around with some of the different samples and sleep times. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to play around and hear some of the different sounds that you can use and experiment with some different sleep times, which again changes the speed of your loop or how fast the sound is coming back again and again. I should mention a word about errors. So again, I said in the last little clip, you have to type what you see here exactly. Computers are very, very fast and they're very clever at some things, but they're also a bit thick when it comes to understanding human mistakes. So let's say I make a mistake with my code. If I forget this colon here, so if I take that out, you see that color of that has changed, which is a clue that something might not be right. If I try to run this code now, you can see I get a runtime error and this very dramatic bit here, thread death. So nothing has died, nothing is majorly wrong, but Sonic Pi is telling us that we've typed something incorrectly, so it's not a big deal. We just have to figure it out. Now, it's usually very good at telling you where the problem is. So you see here, I've got this arrow pointing at that line. So always look there and see if you can find where you've made the mistake. All of the examples that we do in these tutorials will base on code that I give you to start with and that you can then play around with. So go back and compare and make sure that you have typed everything exactly like you see it on the screen. So I realized that I need to have that colon. And now if I run my code, it works. So if you get an error, it's no big deal. I make them all the time. If I type too fast, if I just forget how something should be typed, I get an error. Sonic Pi tells me how to fix it. So it's not a big deal at all. And if you're really struggling, you can raise your hand and your teacher can come and help you as well. Okay, so That's Live Loops. I want to finish off this first video by just introducing you a little bit more to the Sonic Pi window that we're using with the different buttons and things that you can look at, and also introduce one really important command. It's usually the first one that everybody learns. It's the play command. So we'll learn how to make some simple melodies using this right now. Before we do that, I'm going to leave this code here in the window, and I'm going to give myself a fresh window so that I can have a clean slate to start with. So along the bottom of the big window, you see these numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. 0 is highlighted at the minute. That's the buffer that I'm working in. We call these buffers. If I click the number 1 buffer next to it, now that's the active buffer, I've got a fresh window that I can type code into. If I go back to 0, my code is still there, so it saves it for you automatically. You don't have to save anything in Sonic Pi. So I'm in the number 1 buffer now. Clean slate, can start from scratch. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to type the simple command play. This is usually the first command that everybody learns. After play, I'm going to hit a space, and then I'm going to type the number 60. And I'm just going to run this code and see what happens. So again, I click the run button, and it just plays that single note for about a second. I don't have to hit stop because that was it. It's already run that code. So all Sonic Pi is doing is it's playing note number 60, which on a piano keyboard, for those of you that maybe have a piano at home or have seen one before, it's a note right in the middle of the keyboard, and each of the notes on the keyboard gets a number. So if I type in a higher number than 60, say 70, I get a higher pitch. If I type in a lower one, let's try 24, I get a really low pitch. Depending on the speakers in your classroom or your headphones, you might not have even heard that pitch. It was quite low. Let's try one that's a bit higher. So yeah, very low pitch there. If I go quite high, say 90, I get a higher pitch. So we can use these numbers to make melodies simply by stringing them together in a chain. So if I start off with this C, go to a new line, and I hit another play, and I put in a different number, 64. So this is a slightly higher pitch than the one before. What do you think is going to happen when I hit run? Let's find out. It plays them both together. So the computer is very fast, so it runs the code, and it plays the first one and the second one so quickly that it sounds like we're playing those two pitches together, and we get this lovely C and E pitch. And I can even keep going. I can add another pitch here, 67, and now it plays all three at the same time, and I get a lovely C chord. If I want to make a melody, though, I need to wait a certain amount of time between each of the pitches, because most melodies don't have all the notes happening at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sleep command that we learned in the last little clip. And I'm just going to put sleep for half a second between each of these notes and see what happens. So I've just copy pasted my sleep command here. And now let's see what happens. So it plays note 60, note 64, and note 67 in sequence with a half second between each one. Okay? So we can even change these numbers around and start to make a simple melody that I'm sure everyone will be familiar with. There's part of it. Let's go back up to this pitch here. And I'm going to give myself a couple more of those 64s and maybe one more. And this should be Merrily We Roll Along, or Mary Had a Little Lamb, depending on how you learned it. So this is how we can make simple melodies in Sonic Pi. By combining plays and sleeps, we can get that little waiting time between each pitch. And again, these sleeps could be anything I want. So I could change some of them to different values. I could have some of them be 1. I just chose 2 at random. And if I hit run now, it gives it a little lilt. It gives it a different rhythm because we've got different sleep times happening. It gives us that different sounding rhythm. So this is going to do it for this first video. I just wanted to get you familiar with what the Sonic Pi window looks like and a couple of basic commands here, play and sleep, that you can use to make some simple melodies. So pause the video now, and for the rest of your time in this session today, just have a go with playing around with some different melody notes and see if you can make your own melody using different play and sleep times. Okay, that's it for now, and we'll see you in the next video.